Having one of our challenge coins here at my desk to like fiddle with is
Yeah.
like the best thing ever.
I don't even have one.
Really?
No. I
Oh,
don't have one.
it's like the only reason I asked for one of the extras is like, let me get one of those just so I guess a memento.
Dude, those things are great, man. You can show everybody. It's actually a really
A little challenge coin.
yeah, Jordan did a great job with those.
Oh, it's
I was
the
blocking it out.
blur.
There it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
I won't autofocus on it though.
Yeah,
That's
that's
pretty
all right.
lame.
You may have to turn off your background blur.
Yeah, probably. I'm not gonna worry about that right now.
Bitcoin veterans, man. I'll tell you what, handing those out was a special moment. That was great for, I think, the team to all get together and have a moment of like appreciation for all the guys and gals out there that are doing amazing things and making this work. Let's see.
Yeah, I want to see the footage from it. Like that whole ceremony that night was pretty fun.
Yeah, hey, I guess Jordan is releasing most of that out into the wild on Noster now under the Bitcoin handle. So it'll eventually.
I think what he's doing is he's releasing like the interviews that they got at the pleb
Right.
party primarily.
Yeah, those first.
Because the footage from the team house needs to be filtered.
Yeah, I mean, maybe to a certain degree. Yeah.
Yeah,
but,
to a certain degree. Not anything
not a lot.
extreme. Just some of the language could help to be censored a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know what people think when they're around a bunch of vets that are drinking and smoking and having a good time after putting in a ton of work. Like it's like, guys, this is if you were under any delusion that we don't cuss and drink and smoke and have good times and tell inappropriate jokes and all that kind of stuff, it's like, yeah, maybe this is not the group for you.
It's just like as far as ridiculousness, it's just like that the recent debacle with that coach. I can't remember where what team. I think it was like a high school team or a college team, but like video came out of like his locker room chat with the guys.
Yeah.
As far as locker room conversations go, very tame. And
man, yeah, I'm sure.
And all of the internet is just like, okay, maybe not all of the internet. I saw a lot of support for the guy, but he got fired from his position because of it. It was like, dude, did you guys watch the video? Like, what do you expect to go on in a men's locker room?
Right. I mean,
he's basically just dropping a few, like maybe he dropped a few F-bombs or curse words, but he's like, quit being like a bunch of fucking pussies. Like, yeah, exactly. That's what guys need to hear in the locker room. I don't know, like, what parent is hearing this and like just having a conniption fit over it.
Right, and the idea that this isn't okay, like for men to joke around, and I say this with all sincerity, is like if there's no action, right, and there's a lightheartedness and there's no malice or intent, and it's just guys bullshitting, like it's just bullshit. That's all it ever is. It's just bullshit. And oh man, some of these weak people out there that just get so offended by this kind of stuff. It's like I was watching this one comedian, and probably one of his short reels or whatever it was, but he was I think he was in the cellar and he was like, listen, I don't do liberal jokes anymore. You guys aren't any fun. You don't have you can't laugh at a joke, you can't take a joke. So, and he had this whole spiel, which was a joke in obviously itself, and it was fantastic. It was
spot on though. Yeah. Like their whole identity is to be outraged. It's like, dude, like right. don't you just get sick of it? Like, don't you just want to laugh? Like, don't you miss laughing? Like the whole liberal left has got to be just starving for laughter at this point.
Yeah.
Like, what do they laugh about?
No, Trump. I think they laugh about Trump.
They're busy crying about Trump right now.
Well, yeah, the meltdown is complete right now. I mean, you're watching. Somebody was telling me there was like over 2,000 suicides right after he won.
I mean, I saw the really I forgot to put my watch on. I saw the really sad story of a guy from I think Minnesota who said that he was so scared of what a Trump presidency would bring for him and his family that when when it got pushed out that Trump got elected, he went and murdered his wife, his kids, and
Yes, I did see that.
then he like killed himself. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, like this is on like the Mockingbird media. Like you got like this, like that blood is on their hands. Like you guys did this. You guys like made up all this nonsense, fear porn mongering that has driven people to this literal like stage of psychosis to where they're basically throwing their family off the cliff like the Japanese during World War II because of what was spread around the American soldiers, like what they're going to do to the people.
Yeah, and not in the. Well, yeah, I guess that's a pretty there's a lot of honor killings and things like that, but this is not that. This is one of those things where you're afraid of an invading horde, and the invading horde is going to come after your kids, going to rape your wife and your daughters, and I mean to be that far gone that you actually believe that this is all going to come unwound when the people with all the guns who have been peaceful all along with 500 plus million guns are suddenly just going to get uncontrollably violent. It's just
the ones that are shouting from the rooftops of like no censorship, we need free speech so you guys can share your opinions that we don't agree with. Like those are the people that are going to suppress you.
That's right.
Like give me a break.
People who want
stop and think about that for just like half a second and employ a quarter of a brain cell, and I think you'll come to the same conclusion that we've got. Like maybe they're not the problem.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, dude.
Wild. All right, it is 7:01. Go tell your friends, spread the message, enjoy the intro. What's up, everybody? Bitcoin veterans. I'm Shane Hazel. I got Mike Hobart with me as usual. Man, I think we're gonna have a fun. Probably, this is not gonna be a lighthearted show. We'll try to make it as lighthearted as.
Is there ever one lighthearted?
Well, we got to get through
that was a joke.
Hey, that's a good way to start this thing off. We're Bitcoiners. We're veterans. This is very self-explanatory. What's not self-explanatory is why we do what we do here at Bitcoin Veterans. Bitcoin Veterans is here to put you on the mission. It doesn't matter if you're a veteran. It doesn't matter if you're a civilian. This is a action-oriented group that's full of passion and mission, and it's one of these groups that if you want to get into something and you want to see if there's anybody else who wants to get into it, there is a place for you. You can go to bitcoinveterans.org, get signed up, and we'll put you in the chats. We've got signal chats for every region of the United States. We've got chats out there for Citadels. We've got Bitcoin employment through Operation Bitcoin that Gabe runs. We've got just a million things going on in the background, and we are just here doing our own piddly little show, letting people know kind of what's going on in the world and spreading the message of Bitcoin veterans. But if you want to get involved, that's bitcoinveterans.org, and we'll get you plugged in. Mike, this is our second time sitting down today. It's a rare occasion where we get to do it twice in a row, but we actually got to sit down with Guy Swan earlier today and on his show. So that was really cool.
That was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what how the response is to all of it.
Yeah.
He's going to be putting it out. Is he going to be putting it out on his Bitcoin Audible podcast?
Yeah, it's going on Bitcoin Audible.
Okay. Because I think that'll be, I like what he's doing over there. He's doing the mixture of like doing his audiobook stuff and then also doing his own like kind of like riffing. Because like, I'm not going to lie, when we went into it, I have no idea. What's up, J-Dub? I had no idea like what the kind of direction was going to be, because I'm so used to like Guy Swan doing his Bitcoin Audible thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we get in there, and then he just comes right out the gate, guns blazing, just like outrage and like really wanting to get in. I'm like, okay, all right,
Let's go.
We're doing a Bitcoin Veterans podcast. Like this
Right.
is perfect. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, obviously, Guy's one of those. If you don't know Guy Swan and you're in Bitcoin, man, go check out Guy Swan. Guy Swan is one of the best in Bitcoin. He's literally read more than probably anybody in Bitcoin, especially to other people. I think that would be the caveat if there's, if there is one to be had. But yeah, he's one of the most prolific Bitcoiners, I think, in the space in terms of creation and content, which I think, especially on my journey early on, Guy was one of those guys, personally, I reached out to him and said, hey, I'm having trouble with this. And then he really went to bat for me and helped me out. This is my early days of Bitcoin. And I, really a debt of gratitude to him for a long time. And now to, go out there and do what we've done in North Carolina and to have him want to, understand it and track it and talk about it and have his audience understand, more from the perspective of people on the ground. It was a great moment this morning to get to talk to him.
Yeah, especially when it comes down to the stuff that you kind of like helped us like get started on and then had to dip for your schedule.
Yeah.
Like getting into kind of like when, like after you left, Jordan and I talked a little bit about like the negative stuff that's going on out there. And like, that's probably been the hardest part for me, because like I want to talk about that with people, especially back here in Iowa.
Yeah.
And like family, friends, and a lot of people just don't want to hear it. Right. Like I have family and friends that have like told me, like, when I start talking, they're like, look, I understand that like you think like that you value this and this is important for you, but I want to keep my head in the sand on this. And I'm like, okay, like I gotta say I don't understand it, but I can respect like your desires on that, and I will just charge on and I will not talk about it. But I think a lot of the stuff that we've seen and we've talked about scares a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I think it's unnerving for a lot of people, and
Yeah.
what we're seeing on the ground out there. I mean, maybe this is worth talking about in the beginning of the show because it's. I know some of the people already know what's going on, but there's other things that are developing in the background where it's whether it's human trafficking, whether it's the body count that doesn't add up, right? Like in this situation out here that we were talking about. You can't hear me?
No,
Oh, sorry.
I was saying the body count never will add up.
No. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to have missing people. You're going to have people who are missing that nobody misses. And on top of it, that whole side of it, which just go check out the show. We'll put it out when it airs with Guy, and that side of it is one of those sides that obviously we're combating 5th generation warfare at this point. And when we're on the ground and we're doing the intelligence collection and everything else, and we're running into people who have stories that are not being told by mainstream, and there is a lot of times either government involvement or non-government involvement, like they're just a black hole and you're sitting there kind of scratching your head. There's a lot that needs to be documented during this, and that's part of our mission is documenting what's going on and combating the 5th generation warfare that is happening from the state and the feds, with the normal legacy media that's never going to cover it the right way.
Yeah, and I think this is probably like a good kind of segue into like some of the stuff that we wanted to talk about tonight. Is that one thing that I've been trying to bring up as much as possible, as much as it's relevant. And I wrote about this in my Substack. If anybody wants to like read what I wrote on 5th generation warfare, the thing is too that we have to keep in mind is that 5th generation warfare has always been there. Mm-hmm. It's just the potency with its effectiveness and its reach hasn't hit the crescendo that it has until now, right? Because like it's been more of like a upper level, high altitude leadership kind of like strategy of controlling the messaging and the signaling and like public opinion and all that. But now that innovation and particularly telecommunications innovation, has progressed to the point of where we are communicating with people on the other side of the planet in a matter of milliseconds. It makes for the thing that I think people forget about is that like communications itself, telecommunications is a tool. It's neutral, right? So like the spreading of propaganda or false information is just as fast as the spreading of true and good information. The problem is that when it comes to the false information, you're dealing with the Brandolini effect of where most people, like, when they hear lies that are sold to them as a sugary sweet treat, like they
Yep.
will take up those lies like rapidly, like literally like a drug addict, like they're fiending for it. Like people are built to like confirmation bias seeking. Like they
Yeah.
want to know that they are correct. They want to know that they are making the right decisions. So when you have a lie that's wrapped up like that, they just lap it up. But then that also means that the spreading of the good information is going to get drowned out in that process. And you have to just really just lay it on. Like you have to just, it's a persistent, consistent flow of just like, no, like that's not true. Like this is what's going on. This is the data like that. And that's the hard part about being Bitcoiners and being veterans and being defenders of freedom is that like because of that relationship, the war never ends.
Yeah, and I think that is a great place to introduce and segue what we wanted to talk about tonight. You guys can clearly see down at the bottom Trump's AIPAC cabinet. Before we get into that, maybe what we should do is hit up our sponsors real quick, and then tease this a little bit, and then we'll come back. Let's get to our sponsors. Black Sheep Ammunition. Veteran-owned and operated, Black Sheep Ammunition graciously donated 6,000 rounds to Bitcoin veterans for the Nashville Range Day event. Use Bitcoin 10 for 10% off. Black Sheep Ammunition is not made for the faint of heart. They craft ammo for the black sheep, for the watchful defenders called to hunt, provide, and protect, and for the brave patriots who boldly keep watch atop the hill, and for the weirdos who aren't afraid to stray from the flock. When courage calls you to action, Black Sheep will be there to answer. Their mission is to supply every freedom-loving American with enough firepower to get the job done twice. Check them out at blacksheepammo.com. Use the code Bitcoin10 for 10% off. A big shout out to our friends over at Punchplate. Coddle.co, that's CODL.co. Punch plates are a durable medium for your Bitcoin and can store 12 words or 24-word Bitcoin backups. Storing your Bitcoin in metal ensures your keys will survive in the elements, accidental spills, and in some cases even fire. You don't have to worry about smeared ink or ripped paper and can sleep soundly knowing your Bitcoin are inscribed on a punch plate. These are the best prices you're going to find in this industry. $24 for a 24-word punch plate. It's simple. It's a punch and a plate. No little letters, no stamps with letters on them. Just a punch and a plate. Go check them out at coddle.co. That's punch plate at coddle.co. Thanks to Black Sheep and Punch Plate. We'll get to other sponsors here in a little bit, but wanted to jump in now and kind of start into the meat of what we're seeing. Trump has made a lot of picks so far for his cabinet, man, and I would be remiss if I wasn't I guess a little bit disappointed. It seemed like last Tuesday when we left you guys, I think we left you guys about maybe a half hour to an hour before the race was decided. It was like a little over a 5-hour marathon, and we had, I think, 2,000 people watching at almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and maybe 1:30 in the morning. Is wild. So first of all, thank you guys for tuning in and being with us during that. Obviously Trump won, and now we are starting to see some of the beginnings of what he's, putting together for a cabinet. And I guess it's no surprise here what we're going to talk about. Is Trump's AIPAC cabinet. He is nominated Marco Rubio for Secretary of State. He is nominated Lee Zeldin for the EPA, Kristi Noem for Secretary of Homeland Security, Mike Huckabee for the Ambassador to Israel, Mike Waltz for National Security Advisor, and Elise Stefanik for the ambassador to the UN. And each one of these people has a kind of a special tie to Israel. I mean, this is kind of the high level, which for me, like looking at this and thinking, I think we had a tweet, that went out by Dave Smith talking about like, hey, listen, we need to be, it's great that Pompeo is not going to be in there. It's great that Nikki Haley's not going to be in there, but this needs to be the entire platform. This can't just be like just those two. Like it's all war hawks. And it was a good tweet, by Dave Smith. And then Donald Jr. picked it up and said 100, 100, 100 agree. Like I got this, right? Like basically Donald Jr. is going to talk to Donald Sr. there, and we're going to make sure that this doesn't happen. Meanwhile, if you know anything about who the war hawks are and who is pushing war, and you start to see these names roll through, and you can go and you can check it against there's a great group of guys out there that is doing God's work. I think it's at Track AIPAC. AIPAC, if you don't know who AIPAC is the American Israeli Political Action Committee. They are the only foreign entity that is allowed. And I guess we can get into what some people will call conspiracy. It's not conspiracy. JFK was trying to get AIPAC to register with FARA, days before he was assassinated.
Which is the what, Foreign Agent Registration Association or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. Basically, if you're a foreign body with foreign money, with representing a foreign country, you have to register with FARA. And guess what, America, the only foreign body that has a political action committee is Israel. I wish I was making this shit up, man. This is what boggles my mind. The people who have been conducting a genocide for over a year now and are only expanding their bombing campaign to the surrounding areas, whether it's Syria or Lebanon, the fact that they've taken out and leveled most of Gaza, and they're basically wiping out the Palestinian people, which we're not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, they're all great. No, but I mean, this is like America going after Indian tribes. If we were literally just bombing them off their land and pushing them into oblivion. And now what we're going to see is we've got character after character in the list that I've already provided for you that is literally bought and paid for by AIPAC. This is what Thomas Massey talked about on his show with Tucker. Is like pretty much everybody in Congress, and a lot of these guys come from Congress, have some sort of AIPAC handler. Yeah.
Well, like that's like regardless of what anybody feels about what's going on with like the military action over there, like my biggest concern is like why is Israel allowed this political action committee? Why? Like that should be like the first question. It's like if we're trying to actually keep foreign influence out of our elections and out of our politics, this seems like a pretty backdoor.
Yeah.
We don't have a Vatican political action committee, right? Because the Vatican is its own state. Why don't we have that? We don't have anything for Islam or like Muslims.
Yeah.
Like,
not
so why are we allowing these like this country or this government to have like a literal open back? Like it's weird because it's like a back door with spotlights on it, but then everybody's just like kind of like no, like ignore those neon lights. Like we don't need to look over here. Look over at all these pretty explosions and everything going on in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Like it's just dude.
Yeah. Oh,
and like the really frustrating thing too is that like Dave Smith has been pivotal in this topic. It's like the sacred cow. Like we can't talk about Israel or any of this stuff or any of like the fuckery that's going on or any of the suggestions or conspiracy theories around their capability of influencing U.S. politics and U.S. governmental decisions, like legislation, because of the fact that they're tied with the Jewish faith. Like why can we not challenge like what they're doing? Why?
Yeah.
Is like literally because like we helped them out with World War II? Like that's why? Like or like seriously though, like why
What
can we not like just like talk ill about some of the things that Israel has done? Like
so
I don't get it.
so we can, right? Because we're not bought, we're not paid for. We don't have compromising photos, or we haven't dodged our moral obligation to ourselves, our loved ones, in those times where they put pressure on people. And this is coming from a guy that has tried to push for political office, right? Is like, there's a very good reason I'm not in political office, and it should tell you everything in terms of I'm not going to sit
Because
here
you
and
don't
say,
have hair.
yeah, exactly. The bald guys with beards, they don't get put in office. Oh well, I guess there's that jackass from Pennsylvania that walks around in sweatsuit every
Fetterman.
day. Yeah, Fetterman in the halls of Congress. I digress, though. I think in moments where it mattered, these people capitulated somewhere. These people sold out, and so if everybody understands the game, let's just talk about the game. The game is, you've got porn in the United States, which is probably one of the only free streaming services you can get your hands on starting at 9 years old, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is the truth. If you want porn in the United States, you can get your hands on the filthiest, most derogatory shit you can possibly imagine at 9 years old, and it's absolutely 100% free.
All you
Are
have
you
to do is click
21?
on a button that says yes, I'm 18.
Yeah. Like, great. Yeah, you guys have done a solid job. These kids can read.
No child will ever do that.
No, never. And so what happens is now you've got a free product, which, if that's the case, then you are the product. So what they're doing is they're keeping tabs on what your kinks are. And when the kinks are I don't know, maybe mild, maybe not such a big thing, but if your kinks turn out to be something that can be used against you, or now let's say you get invited to a party, whether it's a Diddy party, or whether it's a Epstein party, or a Oprah Winfrey party, or a what's the other creep out there that used to roll around with Winfrey? He got actually charged and released just recently. I'm trying to remember.
Ooh, I don't know him.
Weinstein.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So
Hollywood.
yeah, so now you get invited to one of those. I mean, and that's the thing, is they've got these parties for all the different connected people that are out there. All of a sudden, maybe you get something. Your drinks are flowing. Maybe you make some bad decisions on your own, but maybe those bad decisions are put in front of you because they already know exactly what your type is. What is going to make you fail? Is it drugs and sex? Because most of the time it is. Is it alcohol and sex? Most of the time it is. And when you start to understand, like, this is how they were working, they started to blackmail people. They knew what their kinks are. They built a portfolio. This is literally targeting portfolio intelligence kind of stuff, 101.
Yeah.
So you build your portfolios. Now you know who's running for office, who can be exploited, who can't be exploited. And that's who literally wins elections, right? Is we're going to throw all of our money, AIPAC. We're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to put in the people that we can corrupt, and or that we can blackmail. And now it doesn't matter if they're Israeli or not. If they're in office, we can tell them, especially as senators, these are the people who you're going to put in the bureaucracies as secretary. So it doesn't matter if it's, Secretary of Defense. It doesn't matter if it's intelligence. It doesn't matter if it's Homeland Security, DHS. It doesn't matter if it's the CIA. All these people are confirmed by people who are blackmailed. And most of them are obviously, handled by AIPAC. And this is citing Thomas Massey, a U.S. congressional representative, who says, basically, I'm the only one in Congress that doesn't have an AIPAC handler. To understand how this game works, people.
I shouldn't be laughing, but it's hard not to.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of check on, I wanted to bring these up because these are important. This is Mike Waltz. Mike Waltz is a representative out of Florida. He is going to be nominated for, let's see, national
Do you have any
security.
relationship to Tampon Tim?
Yeah, national, I don't
Okay.
think so.
Just
Maybe.
wanna make sure.
I can't say that for sure. But let's watch what he has to say about the House Armed Service Committee here and what's going on with Iran.
I think at this point, the only thing that is going to stop the Supreme Leader from his nuclear obsession is a very credible use and threat of military force. Look, nobody wants war, nobody wants a conflict, but this is about deterrence. And at this point, with Iran believing they are this.
Uh-oh.
Has this LARP served in the military?
But also the ballistic missiles and the ability to weaponize it. I think this is the only thing that will stop him. And what does that mean? That means a very clear statement from the commander in chief. We did not get that in that press conference, but it also means credibly moving forces into the region. And it, most importantly, selling the Israelis, giving the Israelis the technical, sophisticated military equipment that they've been asking for and haven't been getting from this administration.
Doesn't this statement from the Supreme Leader that they can build a nuclear bomb if they want to right now, doesn't that sort of demand a response from the Biden administration?
Well, again, we get this. I think it demands a very clear response. In that when we say we will not allow Iran to have a bomb, what does that mean? What are we prepared to do to stop it? The Israelis are very clear, and we, one, need to be clear alongside them, but two, need to be clear to the region that we will support Israel if they have to take action.
Okay, so one thing.
Every fucking time, man.
One thing that was immediately triggering that I want people to really pay attention to is, especially with the 5th generation warfare topic, why is he using the word credible?
Yeah.
Like I was like, what is a credible response, dude? Like, what does that mean? What is a credible kinetic like element? Like what? Like, because like that's the thing, man. Is like they will. I try to stay like nonpartisan, but what's going on right now with Mockingbird Media and everything, it tends to be almost everything liberal left. So I'm just going to direct it in that direction because it's a target-rich environment right now.
Yeah.
They keep changing up the words that they're leaning on. And they're leaning on them because they use them multiple times in multiple different like directions. I guarantee the reason he's using credible is because like people kind of like associate fidelity or value to that word, like when it's being used in a sentence, but then they're not stopping to actually think about what it means. What does a credible response militarily mean? Because it's extremely subjective. Is he talking about like thermonuclear like weaponry like as a response? Is he talking about thermobaric, which are both banned? Like, is he talking about like setting in wet works to go in and try to assassinate the Supreme Leader? Like, is he talking about like a kamikaze swarm drone response? Like it's just open ended. It could literally be
directed energy response.
Yeah.
Like, and this is what pisses me off. To answer your earlier question, yeah, Mike Waltz is actually a Green Beret. He's a former colonel. And
okay, well, at least there's that.
So we understand. This guy's been involved for a long time. He probably picked up the rank of colonel politically, right? Like you don't get real far in you don't get to the rank of colonel without being political one way or another.
Yeah, you get to captain by breathing and just staying in long enough.
Yeah, just don't try not to get anybody killed. But yeah, this is all the talking points, and this kind of just sums up. And then we'll get to the other ones, but we've been talking about the threat of Iran getting a bomb for as long as I've been an adult. And this is lazy. This is the tired MO. And if you weren't around for the early 2000s, they talked about this all the time. Iran can't have a weapon of mass destruction. I mean, think about that. India's got them. Pakistan's got them. Fucking Israel stole nuclear material during the JFK presidency, and they stole nuclear secrets during that time. And there's a great piece. What's his name? The Coco. Ian, what's Ian's last
Ian
name?
Carroll.
Ian Carroll has a great piece on this, where he talks about how this all went down during the JFK, and our nuclear policy towards Israel is we don't fucking talk about it. That's wild. That Israel literally stole nuclear materials and nuclear secrets from the United States, and instead of being like, damn, those guys are a threat to the Middle East, and those guys are a threat to like their surrounding areas and possibly the United States. Obviously, if they're stealing and spying on America, those guys are the actual real threat to America. Versus now, okay, now it's Iran. Man, Iran doesn't have a bomb. They've got 90 million people in Iran, I think is the number. And
That's
you
it,
kinda,
really? Wow.
yeah, you hit the nail on the head when you said, Iran, when you're talking about threat versus, intention and capability, that last part, right, is like, let's say you're in a street fight and or somebody's posturing, let's just say you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and you've got some jackass over here who's running his mouth. Maybe he's drunk. He weighs maybe all of 150 pounds, and you're a 200-pound plus guy. Like, he's not armed? Does he have malintent? Sure, he has malintent, but does he actually have the capacity to pull off something like that? He doesn't. That's Iran, right? Like, we have been meddling in the affairs of Iran since Operation Ajax with the CIA in 1952, when we unseated Mossadegh, for God's sakes. So when you start to understand like the whole ploy for Iran, like Iran is extremely oil rich. It is the crown jewel of the Persian Empire, for God's sakes. And when we start to understand it in those narratives, and you start to see all the little bases that NATO and America have put in the surrounding countries, whether it's Afghanistan, or Iraq, or up in the Kurdistan area, or down in Kuwait, or down even the Fifth Fleet out of Bahrain, you start to realize, like, man, like, are you guys kidding me? Are we still on this narrative that Iran is the great evil? Iran has no capacity in terms of delivering nuclear bombs here to the United States, and I would highly, highly suspect that if anything ever happened like that, it's a black flag. Like, this is a total black flag thing. And he caveats this whole speech with, and we got to help Israel fight them. Well, if Iran is such a threat to the region, right, wouldn't everybody in the region be like, fuck Iran, let's take out, I mean, Saudi wouldn't stand for it. And if you don't know anything about Middle Eastern politics, Saudi Arabia is not on good standing with Iran. It's probably because of their close ties to the United States, but they are literally in opposition, and they're not going that route. Everybody in the Middle East right now is outraged by Israel, right? Israel is bombing more and more people all the time. They've got fronts going in at least 3 different countries right now. The Greater Israeli project is a real thing. And you can start to see, it takes part of Saudi Arabia, it takes Kuwait, it takes most of Iraq, it takes Syria, it takes Lebanon, it takes part of Egypt. And what they're doing is they're going for broke right now, because the dollar, the thing that they've used in terms of usury and collecting, money out of thin air and extracting wealth from, not only here in America, but around the world. This whole damn thing is built around the Israeli narrative that if Israel is threatened, even after they've pulled off genocide, that Israel or that America somehow has to supply them and help them and even fight fucking wars for them.
Yeah.
Oh man, for a guy like Mike Waltz to say this as a Green Beret, man, it makes me absolutely sick.
Well, it makes you wonder if he's like, I bet I'm considering the level of indoctrination that the U.S. military is very good at, especially for the last 20 to 30 years. I tend to give the vets the benefit of the doubt that they probably don't understand a lot of the stuff. Yeah.
Maybe.
And that's the hard part about the brainwashing and the propaganda, right? Is there's a lot of opportunity to you just kind of omit certain aspects of the information,
yeah,
and then resell it or wrap it up in a very specific manner and to direct them into like a conclusion that you want them to have by still giving out like the correct information. That's the hard part about like information warfare and intelligence is that there's a lot of opportunity to manipulate things towards the end that you want.
Well, and maybe this is a heads up to anybody. I mean, I carried a top secret clearance for over 20 years. And, one of the things that I will tell you is what they do to people that they trust from inside the military or the MIC for that matter, right? Is they give you a TS clearance or even higher. And now you're privy, right? Like you are privileged to information that nobody else has. You know why you're privileged to information nobody else has? Because it's complete and utter bullshit. And they're like, dude, I'm going to slide you this special piece of information. You're a chosen one. Like you're in the inner circle, and we're going to slide you this piece of information. Nobody else knows this kind of stuff, right?
Oh,
so
you signed an NDA, so if we catch you talking about it, we can sue you into oblivion.
Exactly right. So now you're fed all of this information, and you're like, now what would you do with that information? What would you do? What do you know? And is it first of all, you should be asking yourself, is this fear porn? And a lot of times it's fear porn, right? Oh yeah, they're gonna bring a warhead over here via a submarine that America could track in their sleep, and then they're gonna launch a ballistic missile into the air, and it's gonna have a nuclear warhead, and it's gonna be an EMP type of attack on the United States. Iran isn't doing that. Iran wants nothing to do with that. Nobody in their right mind wants the smoke of the U.S. Like that's really at this point, do you really want that? You want to invite those kind of maniacs into your country? No, nobody.
Well, it's just like nobody wants to smoke with China or Russia either.
Right. So it's like at some point you got to go, all right, well, who's really pulling the levers? And they do this wild information, through clearances. They give, some young guys who are hungry, to go out and serve their country. Hey, here's this information, man. We need you to pull off a top secret mission. And
like a great example is like what I keep thinking about while you've been talking is the movie Green Zone. Mm-hmm. Like where Matt Damon is the commander of like I can't remember what the unit was, but like they're going out and looking, checking out the sites that are labeled as WMD, like cache sites in Iraq, and then they show up and it's a toilet factory and there's nothing there. It's like, dude, like, and that's where like these guys start asking questions, and they're just like, okay, we're rotating you out. Like you're asking questions now, you're getting frustrated. We're bringing in the new guy. He's not going to ask questions. He's fully indoctrinated. He's right in line. Just go out, do the thing. Stop asking questions.
Yeah,
that's what keeps it going.
Yeah, it is wild. Let's move on to the ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. I've thought this guy's a piece of shit for a long time. But nothing gives me such a warm feeling as watching him talk about Israel and what they already own.
Looks like discount Chris Christie.
Yeah, he's a little more southern, not quite as fat, just as disgusting. You could be the judge here.
My feelings personally, and I'm speaking only as a person, I think Israel would only be acting on the property it already owns.
I'm going to pause it right there. What? Israel will only be acting on the property it already owns. Let me set the stage for you.
Manifest destiny right there.
Yeah, what he's talking about is like, listen, Jews have owned this area forever, and that's not even true. Like, just go to the damn Bible. Right? Like anybody who's a Christian out there can go to the Bible and they can look up the word Palestine. Palestine exists over and over and over for the past 2,000 years. And people are like, it's not actually a state. Well, it's mentioned in your Bible when you talk about, like this, Judeo-Christian relationship that we have. Like that's part of the deal. There were Palestinians, there were Gentiles, you name it, man. Like this area was full of people. Like it was just full of a lot of different people that were coming here for religious, reasons. I mean, newsflash, back in the day, the world wasn't such a great place. And the idea of spirituality was like one of those things that got people through life. And so they would make these great pilgrimages to areas like Jerusalem. Jerusalem wasn't just Jews, for God's sakes. There were tons of Palestinians.
What?
And Yeah, I know, right? Oh, no way. There was none of that. It was, it was their land, and they were removed from it. And the thing is most of the people who are talking about anti-Semitism aren't actually Semites. They're literally Eastern Europeans who, migrated there after World War II, or the sons and daughters and grandchildren of the migrants that came out of Europe after World War II, when they divided everything up, from Sykes-Picot, and started establishing the Israeli regime in the Palestinian lands through force and coercion. So let's, all right, just keep going, Mike.
I think Israel has title deed to Judea and Samaria. There are certain words I refuse to use. There is no such thing as a West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria. There's no such thing as a settlement.
How big of an area are we talking here? Judea and Samaria.
Yeah, man. Samaria runs all the way over through Babylon. Babylon is Iraq.
I need to do some Googles here.
Yeah, man. Like, it runs all the way over to Iraq. Samaria is huge. Judea, the area that runs down to the sea, and then obviously over into Egypt. Like, this is what he's saying, and as a guy that understands, like, Mike Huckabee, claims to be this giant Christian and everything else. And to leave out the fact that, he'll talk about Judea and Samaria, but he won't talk about Palestine from the Bible. Like, this guy he's really good at what he does, but he's a really evil piece of shit.
Cities. There's no such thing as an occupation.
That they get out of their minds that people are living in lean-tos and tents, sleeping in cars, circled around a tree. They're living in very well-designed and beautiful cities and communities. Can't wait to get back. I'm going to take an extra hat. I'm going to get it to President-elect Trump. Build Israel great again. Who knows? We may see him wear this out there in one of his rallies somewhere. I don't know.
I don't think so, dude.
Promise that. I can only promise he will get a copy of the hat.
This guy is...
Make Israel great again?
Yeah. Here's the thing is, this guy, what do you think the message is to Israel now? Hey, from the Trump administration, great job. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep genociding anybody and everybody that you want to, because this is your land, carte blanche. This is Mike Huckabee's message, man. And he's going to be the he's going to be the Israeli ambassador. Hey, from the United States, by the way, we don't care that you're killing scores and scores and scores of kids, like literally tens and tens of thousands of kids, if not hundreds of thousands. We don't care. The fact that you have leveled an entire civilization with more bombs that were used in any point in terms of World War II in the European theater, no problem at all. If you need more, we'll make sure you have more. And by the way, I'm going to take this hat back to him. Make Israel great again is like, well, if it was great in the first place, then why didn't it just last? I am just this is the forward. This is who they're putting forward. This is who Trump's putting forward in terms of his cabinet. And you're obviously seeing who the picks are for Israel first. It's crazy.
Well, and I think that also brings up the conversation of like, what's kind of like the maybe not the point, but kind of the point. When you're dealing with this conglomerate or this Kraken or Leviathan that we're talking about,
mm-hmm.
Like the intelligence community, you trace it back to the money, which you trace it back to the Rothschilds. These groups have been playing both sides of every conflict for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Right. And the important thing that I think that veterans and civilians alike need to be aware of is that they are getting their tentacles into all sides of the conflict so that they can have their champions. Just look at the numbers with the Harris campaign. They had $1 billion and they lost egregiously versus Trump's fraction of expenditure.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. Like they just throw money at the problem, hoping to be able to get their champions into significant positions of power so they can exert their influence And if you've got champions on every side of the conflict, like, and you have essentially unlimited funding to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because like the other, like this this whole conversation probably merits like 10 hours worth of podcast conversation for people to really understand the depths. Because when we're talking about when you bring up Operation Ajax, like anybody that's listening, anytime you guys hear Operation Ajax or Operation Condor, which I believe was the one that was behind the Iran-Contra conflict, all of this traces back to Operation Gladio, which is using of illegal or black market sourced funding to carry out coups d'etats in countries and supplant regimes that are not perfectly aligned with what these crazy people want as far as like the direction of like military conflict and everything. They've been doing it in Indonesia, they've been doing it in Chile, all over South America, all over Southeast Asia. Like and it's been documented by Colonel Towner Watkins alone in 37 plus countries that like all this stuff has been like accounted for. And like that's what people need to understand is like the banking cartel is over the intelligence syndicate, which is over all of these different like political arms. Like it's a massive, like this is like its own industry is intelligence.
Yeah, and people think that the Mossad, MI6, the CIA, and the NSA that they're separate. They're not. They've literally joined forces. We gave them the green light to join forces after 9/11, which I'm pretty sure they were joined behind the scenes anyway, right? In terms of, you had some spies go and talk to other spies or analysts, whatever you want to call them.
Double agents, triple agents, exchange of information for favors and stuff. Yeah.
So these guys have been running back and forth, and this thing, they're not different. This Operation Gladio thing where there's dark money that pervades everything. This is why Bitcoin is so damn important. Between intelligence and peace, right? This Bitcoin is the defuse button. It's it makes war unaffordable. It makes everything that these guys do in terms of taking our money or manipulating our money or extracting our money through inflation, and it takes it and it turns it on its head because they can't take it. They can't manipulate it. They either come in and they play by the rules or they get absolutely wrecked. And I'm not saying they're not going to be any nefarious actors. There's obviously going to be nefarious actors, but at some point the money runs out and the money is tracked, right? I mean, at a national level, if there is enough people who are concerned with where money is and where it's going, you can literally sit there and be like, hey man, this is the White House's Bitcoin account. This is their XPub, or this is this is their addresses. This is where they're moving it around to. And if we know where that is and who's moving it and who's signing for it, because it does take somebody to sign for these things, then you can literally put the tail on the donkey, literally quite just go bam. That's who it was. This is who's moving the money. This is who's betraying the American people. That's why Bitcoin is so important, which is, for the life of me, this week, after watching all-time high after all-time high, going, hey man, maybe like just we're on a downhill slope for the first time in my adult lifetime against the war machine and against the banking machine and the aristocratic combination. Like maybe, but with this, man, it's just like it tells me that, one, Trump and his closest personnel don't understand Bitcoin or the power of Bitcoin, or they're still going to try to make a play to try to grab as much Bitcoin as possible and serve the state of Israel over America.
Oh, they're absolutely going to do that, because like that's the difficult part of the conversation too, right? Is that the Bitcoin solution isn't a utopia, or a panacea. It's just limiting some of their capacity. Yeah. And then bringing up some of like the stuff that was potentially hidden beneath the surface and into a greater level of visibility. Not perfect visibility because of like the encrypted nature of the ledger, which we all benefit from and need anyway. But the point is that like this dark money stuff has been allowed because of fiat currency. Because once the physical currency, once the cash is printed, as long as it doesn't go through some sort of Federal Reserve chartered entity that is going to actually count the serial number, you don't know where that dollar is or where it's been going, right? And so they're capable of using that, just literal pallets of cash transported by C-130 or C-5 to go through and like pay for all sorts of like different dealings and everything. That like they're and the other thing too is like what I think is gonna be done is they're gonna use Bitcoin, they're gonna use BlackRock and all these other entities to get as much Bitcoin as they can, and then they're gonna use that those treasure troves as a backing mechanism, and then they're gonna use the economic situation as leverage to push through a CBDC, and none of you guys are going to be able to trust any sort of digital currency that they're going to produce, because they're going to make it so that it's just going to be they're going to have the same amount of freedom as they do with the current system, with like the illegal dealings and everything to support the intelligence and military operations that we're talking about, but then also be able to gain absolutely perfect tracking of everybody's economic behavior and activity.
Yeah.
Like, you guys need to be aware of this, because the unfortunate thing is that there's just like we're talking about fighting evil and how the war never ends. Like resisting this kind of stuff is never going to end, because they have infinite number of times to try and wrap the project up and sell it back to the public in a way that's desirable. And again, it sounds super doomy, guys, but like that's the kind of stuff that we're facing.
That's what we're up against. And if you think just because there's a Trump in office, if you were under the delusion that Trump was a guy that's going to say he's not going to save America. Like, he is literally installing right now and trying to install people who are putting Israel first, which we should have no part in. Like, Israel's none of our business. The entire Middle East is none of our business.
Yeah.
The interesting, I think you kind of put a really nice bow on that. I don't want to kick a dead horse there. I do want to keep, kind of going through this to just kind of prove our point, though. This next one, Elise Stefanik, she's a congresswoman. I've seen her throughout this entire campaign and throughout the genocide that is going on over in Palestine. Continue to make just statement after statement that is just abhorrent, and let's just go ahead and let her rip for herself.
That's why I'm proud to have sponsored or backed every measure to aid Israel that has come before the United States Congress. Every single one. 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 And supplying the state of Israel with what it needs, when it needs it, without conditions.
Without condition? That's not something to brag about.
This is Trump's ambassador pick to the United Nations.
Fantastic.
What does that tell everybody in the United Nations? Everybody in the United Nations, hey, this Elise Stefanik, whatever Israel wants, they're going to get from the United States. And by the way, as one of the controlling powers here, the people that throw up the most money, you guys are probably in for it with us. Like, that's
which means that through the United States, not only is the United States Israel's bitch, but so is the United Nations.
Yeah.
That should piss off like every American. Like, we are nobody's bitch.
I mean, yeah. It's just, listen, what she's saying is I'm really happy to use force and coercion against my fellow Americans to take whatever amount of money that I need without condition to give to the Israelis.
Taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. Like, we're going to rob you, even if you are opposed to violence. Like, hey, you can be opposed to violence and not have a side to pick in the Israeli-Palestine conflict. That's fine. I don't care. But if you're opposed to violence, and this is, literally an objection of your conscience to fund things like war, she is proud to be that person. And I think the total that she ended up with at the end of this election, Total donated from AIPAC, $917,000 for a person who's running for representative, U.S. representative of New York's 21st district. That's incredible to me, man. Like that. Do you know how much money that is? $1 million for a representative position. That's a huge amount of money.
What is that? What does that like go to? Do you know?
Campaign finance. So if you're talking about campaign finance, you're talking about who you're paying first and foremost to do everything. And then you're talking about all the media, right? So now, especially if you've got AIPAC people who are, sponsored by Israel, and you've got a news, a literal legacy media that's completely controlled by Israel. Now you're talking about discount advertisement where they're going to start running her ads cheaper for her, whether it's in print, whether it's in audio on radio or wherever it is in terms of YouTube and everything else. That's all funding for going out there and getting her name out there in front of her constituents. That's what that is. And a blank check to Israel, no matter the condition, even if they are slaughtering children by the tens of thousands, no problem. I'm going to get them whatever they need, whenever they want it. And that's our message to the UN.
And the people involved, they are part of like the discounting mechanism. They wouldn't be skimming off the top for like the delta for that discount. That doesn't.
No,
that never happens in government or military.
Why would they ever do that?
No.
Oh man, yeah, no, that's this. It just keeps going though, man. Let's talk about Lee Zeldin real quick. I mean, I was well blow this one up while we're at it. Yeah, Lee Zeldin, another pick of Trump. Lee Zeldin. This is from AIPAC Tracker. Zionist former congressman is what they're calling him. Environmental Protection Agency is what he's nominated for. $916,000 from AIPAC.
What do you have to spend that money on? Like nobody knows what these positions are, so you're not spending it on like campaign advertisements. I can tell you that.
Well, and here's the other thing is if you look at where environmental protection comes from, this is a communist tenet, right? Like this is one of those things where they're like, oh, hey, you know what? If you give us enough of your tax money, we can fix the environment, we can fix the world, and we can save humanity, which is total nonsense, right?
Yeah, and like real quick for people that like haven't done the research, it is like the EPA is patently communist. The Greenpeace International, which is one of the groups that's been aggressively going after Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining for the last couple of years. Greenpeace International was started. So there's two of them. There's Greenpeace International. There's Green Cross.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was started by Mikhail Gorbachev.
Right.
Problem straight out of freaking. Like he was in Soviet Union. And then you also have the other one was started by a couple that were both very publicly communist.
Yeah.
And then the EPA was started in the 70s, which both of them were started in the 70s. So like how many different dots do you need lined up to like understand that like the EPA, the entire environmental climate catastrophization nonsense is literally a communist conversion funnel to be able to take money, propagandize, and manipulate a population to do whatever it is that they want.
Well said. Extremely well said. This guy is supposed to not, he's supposed to be a thumb in the eye of the EPA. Here's the thing is, if
he's exactly what they want.
Yeah, he's a sleeper, man. And you look at this, and I guarantee you, if he gets in, what would you look for, Mike? What would you look for if this guy is literally, the EPA's worst nightmare? I mean, for me, I'm looking at, all right, is he going to loosen regulations around combustion engines? Is he going to loosen up on things like coal? Is he going to loosen up on fracking? Is he going to loosen up on
nuclear?
Yeah, especially, the miniature nuclear,
yeah.
Odds
is he going to tighten up tariffs on solar panels and wind turbine technology? Is he because those are all coming from China?
That's right.
But no, he's not. I bet he's not going to do any of that.
Yeah, I mean, and here's my bet is he's probably going to do more damage in more covert ways at first than we understand. And that's the thing is, you got an EPA guy that is now funded by the communist, where you're only going to get one thing out of this guy. You're going to get whatever the fuck they want to do, and what they want to do is limit your capabilities and make energy expensive. That's the if we start to see energy spikes, Lee Zeldin is obviously the key.
And to really kind of like put a bow on the whole EPA situation, something that I've heard of that I need to look into, but it's very difficult to look into, and I might not even be able to go any deeper, was apparently the EPA has a strategy of funding itself, of where using taxpayer dollars, they purchase up federal land and then collateralize that land to get loans. And then they use that to gobble up either more land or as their own funding mechanism to do whatever they want. Like, that's insane.
Uh-oh. Look who we got joining us tonight. Surprise!
Wow.
I was in the comments going, "Let me in, retards!" And then I finally found the link.
Welcome to the back half. Are you ready for our advertiser real quick? You sticking around?
Well, I just was gonna say, have you guys touched on Trump's pick for CIA director?
Ooh.
No, I haven't even seen the CIA director one yet.
Yeah, it came out like while you guys were on the show.
They're silencing him.
It's Jordan.
Y'all are talking about.
You're in the Matrix.
No, Gary tried to call me. Stop calling me, Gary.
Oh,
Jesus! Can't you? Obviously, he's not watching.
I'm on.
Yeah, I think you guys are talking about some of his other appointments and stuff, but that literally hit like in the last hour, and Fox News is talking about him. Well, you haven't dug into this, and I'm not interrupting.
Is it John Ratcliffe?
Yeah, John Ratcliffe. So he was Trump's DNI, and Fox News is out here talking about like, yeah, he exposed the fact that the fake Russia collusion story was, run by the Clinton campaign, what the FISA court did, how they lied to get the spying on Trump, and something else. Oh, that he was the only like intelligence official who was saying, no, the 100 laptop story is real, right? Well, Fox News is giving him all this accolade for that now. And it's like, yeah, we knew this stuff back in like 2017. Like, where the hell have you been? You were suppressing it back then. So my question is like, did this guy really have a role in exposing it? Or was I just listening to like some of the right people? But he wasn't the DNI until 2020. And it's like, nah, we knew all that before you were in. So you didn't discover that stuff, dude.
Steve Carell wannabe lookalike here, I think is what he is, if you guys haven't seen him. But yeah, I don't know this guy, man. I've heard the name around, but I'm gonna have to do some research into him. I wonder if there's anything. Your new appointed CIA
he was a rep. Or go ahead. Yeah, you're reading the actual article.
Yeah, mainstream media won't cover the corruption because they are the co-conspirators and complicit in everything. All right. Well, I mean, that's a great quote. I'm gonna have to dig into him, man. I don't know this guy.
Yeah, he might be legit. There's a book coming out about China, but I think John Ratcliffe is mentioned in it, and it comes out like in December. And so I'm wondering, like, what did this guy know? Like, they're already writing a book about something that he's done. Like, what did this guy actually know back then?
Well, and here's the other thing is, why are we putting spies in charge of the CIA? Like, we don't put somebody who is in, the DOD and like literally in the military in charge of the DOD. Like, it's a civilian. And, to think about this is like, should you understand the CIA? I think most Americans are to the point where they're just like, get rid of the CIA, get rid of the FBI, get rid of the NSA, get rid of all these organizations that have abused their power. And instead of doing, unless Ratcliffe's, position is, hey, I'm going to stand down the CIA and try to get rid of and identify as much, foreign spying, on our soil as possible. I really don't understand why we always have to have the quote unquote nation's top spy in charge of the CIA.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he was a representative before that. And then he was like a mayor of a small town. So unless these are just good cover stories, like I don't think he was a spy.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm trying
we might be in for an earful. Gary was just trying to call me while we were talking, so I'm assuming we're doing something wrong that we're not aware of. So I'm sure we'll get an earful after that.
Is he trying to get the link to the chat?
Maybe, I don't know. He was trying to call me though. So usually Gary doesn't call without something important.
Something's going on somewhere.
Yeah.
Who knows, man?
All right, I sent him the link. Maybe he'll join.
Let's see what he has to say about John Ratliff here. I did want to get to Christy Nome, but before that, Jordan, you gonna hang out for a minute? We gotta roll some sponsor stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Solo Satoshi, people. Solo Satoshi is dedicated to the advancement of open source Bitcoin mining with a steadfast commitment to the security and decentralization of the Bitcoin network. As a pioneering force in the Bitcoin space, their mission is to empower individuals and businesses worldwide with innovative, secure, and decentralized mining solutions. At Solo Satoshi, they believe in the transformative power of open source software and the potential it holds for the future of Bitcoin mining. They strive to foster a community of developers and enthusiasts who share our vision of a more secure and decentralized Bitcoin landscape. Our dedication to open source principles is at the heart of their mission, driving their commitment to transparency, collaboration, and innovation. They are passionate about supporting the growth and the development of the Bitcoin network, and they recognize the critical role that open source software and developers play in achieving this goal. By promoting and contributing to open source ecosystems, they aim to facilitate a more robust and resilient Bitcoin network, ensuring its longevity and success for years to come. At Solo Satoshi, their mission is not only to provide cutting-edge mining solutions, but also to educate and inspire others about the importance of decentralization and open source principles in the Bitcoin space. They believe that by working together, we can create a future where Bitcoin mining is more accessible, efficient, and aligned with the core values of decentralization and open collaboration. All right, we're back, and now we're joined by our literal man on the street, Average Gary in the black of night, getting out there, getting the steps. What's up, man? Good evening. How are we doing, fellas? Well, I don't know. It sounded urgent. You've been trying to call people left and right here on, we do this thing on Tuesday nights around 6:45 where we get together. We talk about stuff on Twitter. No big deal.
Yeah, sometimes just calling to catch up, see how everybody's doing. It's been a minute or two. What's the topic of du jour tonight, fellas?
Oh man, just the light topic of Trump's AIPAC appointees so far.
I don't even know what AIPAC is.
Well, you should have been watching the show then. It's the American Israeli Political Action Committee, and well, I'll tell you what, he's lined up some real winners here, man. It's looking like same old. It's like we're swapping out Biden's AIPAC regime for the Trump AIPAC regime.
Listen, I was just telling my neighbor, I am cautiously optimistic, right? Like free Ross day one. Let's keep that commitment, right? But we got to remember, this is not his first rodeo. He's got friends and he's got enemies, and I'm cautiously optimistic. There's a good team on the RFK side, on the ag side, but I don't expect. I mean, he's got his own shitcoin, right? Like that's all you got to know.
Yeah.
Really, what we're getting into. Like it's cool. Bitcoin's pumping. We're hitting all-time highs, but cautious optimism and really focus locally. Again, like now that this national election's over, just get back into your local community, go volunteer, go do something great, get involved.
We were saying why Bitcoin is so important because of this stuff is, if we've got a bunch of people who are warmongers and who are ready to go to war for a nation on the other side of a planet, literally in their own words, with no hindrance and no compunction about what they've done, first and foremost, like buckle up, man, because Bitcoin is going to rob these people of their unlimited printing ability and unlimited power. So yeah, Bitcoin is obviously huge, and it's kind of a conundrum where you've got Bitcoin pumping under, a guy who's got, RFK, who's fantastic on Bitcoin. And then you've got all these people who are literally, shitcoin princesses and princes out there that are trying to, go to war with Iran for Israel. It's wild to me.
I just want to take a moment to appreciate that word compunction, guys, because I had to look it up. Like, Shane, you talk about being a crayon eater. That is a great word. It means irritating. I was just like, all right, I have to make sure it's real. And that's a real word, compunction.
It is a real word. Yeah, no, it's I'll tell you what, I keep up the facade. It's like
it's not that Shane sounds retarded. It's just we're too dumb to understand him, and then we make fun of him. We're just a bunch of bullies.
He's like, you guys make fun of me for eating crayons, but you don't know I put spices and everything on top of them.
That's right, man.
This is a cardamom crayon.
You guys didn't know on the
cardamom.
On the inside of the wrapper of every Crayola is a new word with a definition, and then if you guys would like literally take them off and read them before you ate them, you'd be fine. No.
You don't have to read them; you can just eat them. Learn through osmosis.
There we go. Oh man, no, I think we needed some levity here tonight, guys. I appreciate you showing up. We were just about to get into Kristi Noem, who's been tapped on the shoulder for the Homeland Security position, and boy, I don't even know if I want to go there. We're having so much.
Her name is rings a bell for some reason. What is the recent stuff that she's known for? Because I know that there's at least one thing that
she was the governor of South Dakota, and she was great on lockdowns.
They went hard. Yeah.
They were the only state that never did even like the 2 weeks, like absolutely nothing. But then after that, she kind of rode that wave of support and then just sucked on everything else.
Yeah. She's also the signer of the HB 1076, which requires the consideration of the definition of anti-Semitism when investigating unfair or discriminatory practices into law. I quote from Kristi Noem: "Ever since the horrific terrorist attacks of the state of Israel on October 7th of 2023, we have seen a shocking spike in anti-Semitic acts of hatred around the world, including some isolated incidences right here in South Dakota," Noem said. "I am very proud to sign this bill to keep our Jewish people secure. I hope more states will follow our leadership." And just so you guys know, Georgia's done this, Texas has done this. And when I start looking at like, oh, is there really this kind of problem in North or South Dakota with anti-Semitism no, there's not. Less than 1% of the population in these areas is actually Jewish, first and foremost. Like, it's not like there's, this large density of people to begin with. There's especially not a large density of Jews in those areas where anti-Semitic behavior is a problem. First and foremost,
I mean, it's the same.
Can I make a joke that's going to be really crude, but I'm leading off with Gary's like, I'm out of here. What is Jordan about to say? The problem is, like, when you got whatever the population of the Jewish community is in like New York City, right? You don't really notice that. But when you've got one guy in South Dakota that's just whining all the time, he really stands out. And so I'm sure people were picking on him. But that's all it was. It wasn't anti-Semitism.
Well, but okay, so this gets into like what I was also gonna say is that we're seeing this very same strategy being kicked out from the liberal left with like the abortion topic right now. Specifically you're seeing this wild B4 movement of these women coming out and saying that like they're going to be using aqua tofana to poison men because of like all the abortion stuff now that Trump is in, and they're basing this whole kind of like call to arms around this your body, my choice thing, which was never said by anybody to justify like the whole abortion topic. And so like what I'm seeing is the very same thing is being done with the Israel topic of like, oh, there's all this anti-Semitism and like it's self-victimization to try and drum up public support. It's like, no, like that's not happening in South Dakota. It's not happening in Texas. It's not happening in Georgia. And like none of the abortion stuff is happening either. Like it's like they're recycling the same strategies across different avenues in order to try and get like more and more influence and leverage over the entire political spectrum. It is wild.
Yep.
What's up,
You know what I love? What's up, Chloe? You know what I love about the fact that Trump won is that now that he has, we are going to start criticizing every stupid move that he makes, and people are going to be like, well, weren't they just supporting him like a week ago? Yeah, against the other chick, but we're still like going to tell you everything he's doing wrong.
Yeah, Team Freedom and Team Peace and Team Bitcoin for that matter, which I mean, I guess is synonymous with peace and freedom. Yeah, I mean, you know, kind of to both your points is, you know, when we look back at history, we are taught one thing about World War II, and that is 6 million Jews died. And, you know, that's up for debate in terms of whether you have done some research on that or not. And that's going to be one of those things that some people find offensive, but literally go dig into it. And when you start digging into the facts about that, you're going to find that maybe that number is a little inflated. The other thing that you aren't taught is like, hey, we're Americans. How many Americans died in World War II? How many Russians died in World War II? How many French died in World War II? How about, you know, in the Indo-Pacific? How many Japanese died over there? How many Americans died in the Indo-Pacific? And the thing is we don't know, because all of this has, you know, kind of come to a point where the victors of World War II, you know, we know who that is. You know, they've got their own state now down there in Palestine called Israel, and they're doing, you know, crazy things. And there was a, you know, I forgot what her name is, but she is funny as hell. And she is pushing the lines out there a little bit where, you know, she said something to the effect of, you know, do you think Hitler just woke up and hated the Jews because they were, you know, cheap and slightly annoying, to Jordan's point earlier? Like, it's like, is that really what happened? And, you know, once you start to understand like a little bit more of what happened there, like, maybe like I start to see it. Trump actually made a great video the other day, and I was one of the first people to retweet it, and it kind of blew some people's minds, the comment I put on it, where he started talking about going after, you know, sex trafficking and pedophilia and all this other stuff. And I was like, right on, man. But that puts him in direct conflict with the people who are doing the sex trafficking, like Jeffrey Epstein. Right. And you look at the porn and you look at, you know, who's been doing sex trafficking for as long as they have, and who's involved in things like that, like Bob Barr and George Herbert Walker Bush back in the day when they were part of the Golden Triangle. And then you had, you know, what was going on between them and the Contra, and, you know, sex and drugs and everything else.
Which is Alan Dulles before.
That's right.
HW. Yeah.
And so when you start linking all this together and you actually know your history, you start to go, man, this is all linked back to the exact same people, man. 100%. If he's going to go after this, you know, the last person to go after perversion on this scale, it was Hitler. It was Hitler when he started going after what was the doctor's name over in Germany, where they went in, they started burning his library of books on pedophilia and transgenderism and everything else.
I don't know the name, but like that's an important thing to bring up is for people, like, because especially around like if your understanding of World War II developmental history is only based off of what you learned in high school, which is effectively nothing.
It's also nothing in college.
Yeah, what was happening in Weimar Germany is almost exactly what's happening right now, and what also happened in Rome with the Roman Empire was like the society got to this point of being very what would be the word, enabling of like the weakest members of society, and like getting into the kind of like allowing the whole transvestite and trans conversation to really proliferate, and then getting into like the spreading of degeneracy and pornography and all of those materials. And yeah, it was very interesting to find out that the beginning of Weimar is very similar to what we're experiencing. And then they went after burning those books, and then using the burning of those books as they're burning any and all books. I was just like, okay, like some of history needs to be like, we need to go back and start reading some of the literature that was produced by individuals that we deem to be our enemies, and we need to understand a little bit more of what was going on.
The father of transgender surgery was Hirschfeld. He was an Orthodox Jew of the Talmud, promotes 8 different genders. They burned down his surgical clinics and destroyed all the literature that outlawed, pornography and degeneracy. I mean, this was one of Hitler's main tenets that, really pissed him off, going into World War II or before World War II. This is a huge thing, and people are not taught about this at all. It's like this Hirschfeld guy, they were just like, oh, he burned books. He didn't just burn books. That's ridiculous, man. Like, who in their right mind just wakes up one day with a prejudice against a certain amount of people? That's not how any of this kind of shit happens. This is literally, a guy who was in the German sphere that was going out there and mutilating and keeping guys' genitalia in bottles as trophies on his wall.
That's gross.
Yeah. A lot of this gets blamed on the SS. This is not part of the SS. This is literally Dr. Hirschfeld, which crazy.
So an interesting parallel though, like in today's.
Go ahead, Gary.
Go ahead, Gary.
I was going to say, just like today we have the information age, right? Like there's no burning of the books. You might be able to see it, like the Internet Archive, I think, was recently under quote unquote attack. I don't know the details of that, right? But with things like Nostr, with self-hosting, like Start9, like Shane's shirt and stuff like that, like you can preserve your own archive of digital books, right? Essentially, you can there's web scrapers out there you can use to like save these things off. All their screenshots are just abundant. Like people have so many screenshots. Like there's an expectation that like things on the online are going to be screenshot, especially if it's a heated discussion or if it's a sensitive discussion or whatever. You kind of have to go into that, and you have to go into it thinking about who your other party is in that conversation. And then like what kind of social reputation, like what do you know about that person, right? And if you're boys, then you're probably good. If you're on the same mission, you're good. But any other context, you can assume that that's screenshotted, saved off, or whatever, right? And so you act accordingly, right? You act above reproach. You be good. You don't.
You be good.
You try not to.
Put that on a shirt.
Just don't get heated, right? Like it's like don't burn a bridge that you don't have to. There's no reason you have to be an asshole to the person on the other side of that conversation, even if you vehemently disagree, right? You can just peacefully say, hey, I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with you. So like, let's move on. But you can still offer a hand up however you might want it.
I love that the veterans came back, and I'm not just talking about like Bitcoin veterans. I'm talking about like the veterans pretty much across the board came back from these forever wars and just started a peaceful insurgency in America to take our country back.
Yeah. That's gigantic, man. This whole thing with North Carolina and, the past few weeks has just been one of those places where you see this reunification of guys that were there that, kind of the post 9/11 vets, right? If you were post 9/11 and you drank all the Kool-Aid and went overseas and saw behind the curtain and, found out who Oz actually was. Now you're like, no, man, we're not doing that shit here. We're literally forming an insurgency here in the United States for peace, first and foremost, for money you can't fuck with, and for freedom. That's it. Like, that's the bottom line.
Supporting our communities. That's what we're doing. We're supporting our communities. And I see the education piece of Bitcoin veterans as a huge piece of that, right? Like we've shown people that you can support a community if you have the grit and determination that most veterans have, especially if you've gone over and you've walked along those T-walls. There's a dude on Facebook today. I just happened to pop it open, and it was like a memory of like 14 years ago. And he's like, man, they called these things T-walls. I was like, it was like a flashback to a fob in Afghanistan.
Is that like the Alaska barriers and Jersey barriers and all that kind of stuff? Is that what you guys call T-walls?
Yeah. Giant, but they're just concrete
real
shields.
tall ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I once made the mistake of calling a Alaska barrier a Jersey barrier, and some gunnery sergeant, that was his main job. Apparently, he's like, "That's an Alaska barrier, daredevil," and you're just like, "All right, man." Like, don't
It serves
know.
the same
Everyone else
function,
in the
dude. Who
world,
cares what the name
everyone
is?
else in the world calls him a Jersey barrier.
Or just what divides everything on the median when you're driving down the highway, for God's sakes. And yeah, no, there's
but you also are in a branch where you call a flashlight a torch. So like I kind of get where he's coming from.
Yeah, we call
Don't be jealous because they had flashlights. You guys had little torches in the army.
No, we weren't allowed to use them. If you wanted to use a light, dude, get under a double layered poncho.
That's right.
If you want a light. Otherwise, keep walking in the dark, motherfucker.
Dude, I guess maybe you guys want to end up with a story time.
Ooh,
Yeah, let's do it.
Story time. I'd play this. I guess I could play it, but I'm not prepared. Producer, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So speaking of getting under a poncho for light discipline and all that kind of stuff during land nav, I was out on this place called the Juliet Training Area on Camp Pendleton where we do land nav at night. And you're out there with a bunch of other young guys that are all full of just like testosterone and like trying to outdo everybody else, and you're walking tons and tons of miles every day trying to find these points. Anyway, I walked down to this one point. This is my first night in land navigation, and did my little check underneath my poncho, make sure I'm good. They there's stories of like cadre that will follow you, and if they see you with white light or even red light, you're gone, man. And so it was like, better take this pretty seriously. Don't get out there and do anything weird with your light discipline. So that's one night I was like, all right, man, I'm bopping down this fire break, coming down in this valley, trying to get my point. And I thought I heard a cadre or something behind me. And I was like, no way, man. It's like, there's no way he's keeping up with me. I'm moving quick. I'm being quiet and all this kind of stuff. And, stopped a couple more times because I thought I heard some more. And I was like, nah, no way. So the next morning I get the exact same point that I had as my first point on the night land nav. And I get back to that fire break, and this fire break now, right behind my footsteps where I had just been, are cougar footprints out there that are massive. Absolutely fucking massive. I'm going to tell you right now, for the rest of the time that I did land navigation, I had a white light and a fucking K-bar. Like I was this kitty. I don't care if I get kicked out of this class. I even went back and told, like, I think it was after the morning run when I came back, I was like, hey, are there mountain lions out here? And they're like, oh yeah. And I was like, where was that in the safety brief?
Yeah, where's the task hazard analysis on that one? Like, what?
Like, watch out for rattlesnakes and poison oak. Everything else you should probably be fine, except if a cougar jumps off of a mountain and bites your neck.
Yeah, just so you guys know, cougars do like to follow guys in these lanes. Just
Yeah.
You got lucky that he viewed you as like your buddy and not like your meal or his meal.
No, he probably viewed him as a meal. He just didn't have an opportunity quite yet. Shane was moving
cats
too
play
fast.
with their meals though, right? Like cats play with the things they kill before they eat them. So it's a toy first.
Yeah. I was not real happy about that training evolution. And then I'll tell you what, the great whites later on, in terms of all the amphibious operations that we do out there. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, if you want to go be a recon Marine, have fun. It's the scariest thing sometimes isn't the guys overseas or the enemy. Sometimes it's the wildlife that you're trying to avoid at the same time.
Or it's the guy that's like a mile off of the drop point for your OTB, and you end up swimming a mile.
Oh,
instead of 100 meters.
Yeah. Or if he's got the wrong map datum and in his every fucking time. Like, what do you have in there for MGRS? That's fucking wrong. When you're a mile off.
So my it's funny because this would have been 8 years ago, I guess, because it was the night of the election for Trump versus Hillary. We were out in the field doing land nav, just my team, and it was election night. And I'm looking for my first point. And I know I'm going to get shit. You're a fucking officer. Look, you can't be a GB if you're not good at land nav. And if you're an officer, you have to be like perfect because they're looking for everything to ding you with. So just to pat myself on the back, I'm pretty good at land nav. I'm looking all over for this point. I mean, I'm like doing clover leaves. I'm boxing out like, and my circle just keeps getting wider and wider. And I'm like, there's no way I'm this far off. And, I keep looking for it. I'm like, oh, I'll just go to my next point. Well, then I hit a fence that's not supposed to be on the map. It's supposed to be like 2 clicks further or something. And I'm like, what the hell? And along the fence is one of my my senior Charlie. And I'm like, hey man, like, is this map datum off? And he's like, yeah, it's way off. And he's like pulls out a GPS, and he's like got it configured for the new map data. And I'm like, I'm a fucking sucker. I did this like it was like I'm getting tested and I can only have a compass, and like, what the hell didn't I bring a GPS out here for that? Like, and that's where the officer is an idiot and why he got lost.
This is why you trust.
Then I just got pissed off. I went back. We had a fire and like we were barbecuing for when we were all done, and I just went back and I was watching election results, and we just sat around a fire all night like, oh, he got Ohio. Oh shit.
Oh man.
Going to the field was a lot more fun on a team.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Why not?
You got your bros with you, and it decreases the likelihood of being followed by a cougar.
Right. At least you can outrun one of those guys, right? No, I'm kidding.
Well, yes.
Let's wrap up. It's 8:30 here on the East Coast. You guys got some final thoughts for the night?
Freedom tech. Study freedom tech. Learn it. Find somebody that knows it.
Why don't you give everybody examples of freedom tech out there, Gary?
We've got wireless comms, ham radio, mesh DOSIC. We've got Bitcoin, which is just freedom tech money, right? Basis for society internationally. You've got Nostr. You basically got anything open source, right? So if it's out there in the open, it means you can copy it, download it, use it, change it, whatever you want. And there's freedom to that.
Those of you guys that don't know what Nostr is, if maybe you're new to this community, Nostr is a decentralized platform, much like Twitter, that is growing very rapidly, and you can zap each other sats for content, which pays creators. It's a great place to be. If you're not there, think about opening it at minimum.
It's not a platform. It's a protocol. It's like if you had your Twitter account was the same as your Facebook account, as your TikTok, as your Instagram, as your Zap, or as your Twitch, as your YouTube, and it was all the same followers, it was all the same people, and it's direct content monetization.
Yeah.
You also should go get on Nostr, because we just released our interview with Preston Pish exclusively on Nostr. Great interview, I think, personally. And the first like 10 minutes of it, we get him to kind of open up, or at least explain why he doesn't open up about his military service. And it was just the whole interview was just a lot of different types of takes from Preston that I had never heard before. And that's hard to do with somebody that puts out so much content. You forgot like the most ancient of freedom texts though, Gary, and that's spirituality, which I think is the software of your body, the ideologies that you put into your head. That's the most ancient form of freedom tech. It's open source. It's available to all. You just got to tap into it.
Man, look at that. The officer coming in hot at the end. I like that. I like freedom tech being spirituality. That is fantastic. Mike, what about you, man? Any closing thoughts on our,
continuing off a little bit of dovetailing off what both those gentlemen were talking about, is also looking into like open source decentralized health. Like Dr. Jack Cruz is kind of like vanguarding that whole movement, and he's been talking with Nicole Shanahan and RFK for quite a while about getting a lot of that information out there, because apparently, according to the experts, about 50% of what is in medical textbooks out there now currently is wrong, if not a complete falsehood. So that's important to like also keep in mind. Like going off what Gary said, basically anything open source is what you're going to want to like dedicate a lot of like your time and understanding and attention to, because open source is effectively the Darwinism of technology and innovation, right? It's putting through the ringers. It's allowing for the environment to try and constantly beat it down and destroy it. And if it doesn't get destroyed and it continues to survive, it's usually means it's a good product. And then the other thing would be kind of like going off of the topic that we've been discussing tonight, is just avoid the Kool-Aid, guys. regardless of who your political champion is, always hold them to the same standard. Like, do not deviate just because you like them. And that also means your friends and family, everybody, yourself, like, just avoid the pedestalization, because that's how we get to, like, particularly the problems that we're having today, is ignoring the faults and only focusing on the benefits.
Well said.
One
ahead.
last thing. Did you guys discuss the episode we did earlier today with Guy Swan?
We did. It'll
go check that out when it drops.
Yeah, fairly soon. We'll obviously post it on the Twitter and the X handles and over on Nostr, so you guys can track it there. Man, it's been a great show. Thank you guys for all coming in and doing this with us. Really appreciate it. Some amazing stuff. I think great advice here at the end. This is Bitcoin Veterans. So if you want to get involved with us, bitcoinveterans.org. You don't have to be a veteran. You can be a civilian. We need everybody on this mission. We are into freedom tech. It's not just Bitcoin. It is everything that is going to create a parallel society that you can opt out of this ridiculous state centrally controlled society as it's collapsing, and really start to enjoy life a little bit more. So these guys are here to help you for free. Like, they just do it out of the goodness of their heart. It's amazing. They'll teach you everything from Bitcoin to the other freedom tech that we mentioned earlier, and there is a group for anything and everything you want to do. And if there isn't, you can start one and take action, because the idea that Bitcoin fixes this is just a saying without action. So this is a action-oriented group. If you want to come and hang out with us, bitcoinveterans.org. There are some events that we are planning. Bitcoin Alaska is happening next summer around the 3rd of July, I believe, is when it starts. If you would like to get involved with that, you can contact us, and we will put you in contact with the people that you need to get in contact with about logistics and everything else is going to be going on ancillary around that. That's going to be a huge event. We've got a daily show over on X on Spaces. You can join them. Coleman is the host on that. A lot of times, a lot of our cadre will show up there, and a lot of other Bitcoin veterans. So if you want to come and actually, hang out and talk and kind of go through the issues of the day, I'd highly recommend. That's 10 a.m. Eastern on X every day. It's Bitcoin Veterans. Other than that, guys, great show. Really appreciate everything you guys are doing out there, and everybody who's behind the scenes. It's making this thing work. You guys are badass. We love you. We need you. See ya.